Today, I want to examine one of the most accepted assumptions in real estate, the idea that higher commissions automatically create better outcomes. For decades, homeowners have been taught to focus on percentages, standard rates, and industry norms. But very few people stop and ask a simple question. Are those fees actually tied to the work being performed? This presentation is not about attacking agents. It is about examining economics, incentives, and outcomes through a different lens. We're going to look beyond industry scripts, beyond conventional wisdom, and focus on the numbers themselves. Because when you separate habit from economics, you often discover that what appears normal is not always rational. Let's start by questioning one of the most powerful labels in the business. This is Steve Koleno, and this is Confidential Remarks. One of the most effective tools in any industry is language. The term discount agent sounds harmless, but notice what it implies. It suggests less service, less expertise, less effort, less value. The label was created from the perspective of those benefiting from higher fees. Now let's flip the mirror around. If an agent charges 1% and another charges 6%, why is only one of them given a label? If we're being mathematically consistent, then the higher priced option could just as fairly be called the overpriced option. The point isn't to insult anyone. The point is to recognize how language influences decisions before the facts are even considered. Once we remove the labels, we're left with a much more important question. What exactly are we paying for? Consider these two homes. One sells for $300,000. The other sells for $600,000. Now ask yourself what changed. Were there more photos taken? Was there twice as much paperwork? Twice as many negotiations? Twice as many hours worked? In most cases, the answer is no. The process is largely the same. Yet, the fee often doubles simply because the property value doubled. That distinction matters. Pricing based on effort is one thing. Pricing based primarily on the size of the asset is something entirely different. When homeowners understand that difference, they begin evaluating commissions with a much more critical eye. One of the most common claims in real estate is that paying a higher commission helps a home sell for more money. But let's examine the mechanics. If a seller pays a large commission, that cost has to come from somewhere. Often it gets built into the asking price. The higher asking price creates a higher hurdle for buyers, and higher hurdles naturally create more resistance. In other words, the fee itself can introduce friction into the transaction. The popular narrative says that lower fees leave money on the table. But there is another possibility. The fee may actually be the thing sitting on the table. When we view the transaction through the lens of economics rather than tradition, the relationship between fees and outcomes becomes much more complicated than the standard script suggests. Many consumers assume that every dollar of commission goes directly to the agent. In reality, that's often not how the system works. Traditional brokerage structures frequently involve referral costs, marketing expenses, platform fees, and commission splits. Money enters the top of the funnel and leaks out through multiple layers before reaching the agent. Now, compare that to a high-volume model designed around efficiency. The economics look very different. Fewer leaks, lower overhead, more operational scale. The result is that a lower fee does not necessarily mean less service. Sometimes it simply reflects a different business model. And understanding that distinction is essential if you're evaluating value objectively. This slide compares two fundamentally different approaches. The traditional model often focuses on defending established pricing structures. The efficiency model focuses on execution, process, and volume. One prices based largely on the value of the asset. The other focuses on delivering the work efficiently at scale. Neither model changes the legal requirements of a transaction. Neither changes the paperwork. Neither changes the fundamental objective. The difference is how the business is organized. Consumers often assume higher prices indicate higher quality, but in many industries, efficiency, not price, is what creates value. The same question deserves to be asked in real estate. Modern technology has changed how transactions happen. Sometimes the headlines focus on the technology. Sometimes they focus on marketing. Sometimes they focus on publicity. But headlines do not close transactions. Results do. Behind every successful sale is accountability, compliance, negotiation, coordination, and execution. Those responsibilities still matter regardless of who receives the spotlight. Consumers should evaluate outcomes rather than visibility, because the goal isn't to hire the most visible person. The goal is to achieve the best result for the seller, and those are not always the same thing. Challenge the assumption that price automatically signals expertise. Speaker script, word for word. People naturally associate higher prices with higher competence. It's a shortcut our brains use every day. But does that logic actually hold up here? Imagine two agents quoting the exact same fee. One has decades of experience. The other is brand new. The fee is identical. If price truly measured competence, those numbers would look dramatically different, yet they often don't. That tells us something important. Pricing alone is a poor proxy for skill. Competence should be evaluated through performance, experience, track record, and results, not through assumptions tied to commission percentages. When large financial decisions are involved, evidence matters more than tradition. If you're interviewing agents, focus less on the presentation and more on the evidence. A great salesperson can deliver a polished pitch. A great professional can demonstrate results. Look at actual transaction history. Review closing activity. Examine days on market. Verify public records. Research objective performance indicators. The goal is not to find the best script. The goal is to find the strongest track record. When someone consistently produces results, their history becomes their most persuasive argument. And history is much harder to fake than a presentation. As we close, remember one central idea. Commission structures are not laws of nature. They are business decisions. And like any business decision, they can be questioned, negotiated, and improved. Consumers have more choices today than ever before. They can choose full service. They can choose limited service. They can choose alternative models. What matters is that the fee aligns with the value they believe they are receiving. Transparency creates better decisions. Competition creates better outcomes. And informed consumers create healthier markets. At the end of the day, you are the seller. You should understand the economics. You should ask the questions. And you should choose the model that best serves your interests. Thank you for your time. This has been Confidential Remarks.